Last month, half of Kevin's team got laid off. He didn't. But the next morning, he realized something worse. All of their work was now his. Same salary, double the pressure. At first, he thought he was lucky, but by the end of the week, when he looked at his inbox, he wasn't so sure anymore. Kevin worked as a customer support coordinator at a mid-sized company. Most of his day followed a rhythm he knew well: answering emails, tracking orders, resolving small issues before they grew into bigger ones. It wasn't easy, but it was manageable, predictable. The difficult cases had never been his responsibility. Those were handled by more experienced people, the ones who understood the systems behind the problems, and those were exactly the people who were gone. They weren't the weakest, just the most expensive to keep. Kevin stayed, not because he was better, but because he was easier to keep. For a long time, that difference didn't matter. Now it did. His inbox started to look different. Customers weren't just asking questions anymore. They were pushing back, following up, asking for explanations that required decisions Kevin had never been asked to make before. At first, he tried to keep up the only way he knew how. Working faster, staying later, skipping breaks, hoping effort would close the gap. It didn't. The workload wasn't the problem. It was what the work actually required. And slowly that became harder to ignore. For the first time in years, Kevin wasn't just tired. He felt exposed in a way he couldn't ignore. One afternoon, he found himself staring at the same email for far too long. He read it once, then again. His hands stayed still on the desk. The cursor kept blinking. He had nothing to put there. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know how to solve it either. That afternoon, the customer pushed the issue further. The new message was shorter, more direct. They had copied his manager and added one line at the end. If we don't receive a clear explanation today, we'll have to reconsider the entire contract. Kevin read it twice, not because it was complicated, but because he understood exactly what it meant. This wasn't just another email anymore. He closed the laptop and left it unfinished. That night, he sat in the dark for a long time. The room was quiet, but his thoughts weren't. Unanswered emails, follow-ups he had delayed, reports he had looked at without really understanding. For the first time, they didn't feel like separate problems. They felt like the same one. The next morning, another email landed in his inbox. This one was different. A large order had failed quality inspection. The customer wasn't asking a simple question. They wanted to know what went wrong and what would be done about it. Kevin opened the attached report. Numbers, process steps, technical notes he had never needed to read before. He went through it slowly, then stopped. One part didn't make sense, then another. This wasn't something he could answer by replying carefully. It required understanding the system behind it, and that was exactly what he was missing. He sat there looking at the screen, not rushing, not typing, just seeing it for what it was. The job hadn't suddenly become harder. It had simply reached a point he had never prepared for. If he walked away now, he could probably find something similar. Another role, another inbox, another version of the same routine. And eventually, it would lead him right back here. Or he could stay and face something he didn't yet know how to handle. Kevin looked at the screen again. There was a time he had wanted more than this, not just to respond, but to understand, not just to follow, but to decide. He used to watch the people who handled these cases and wonder if he could ever do the same. Now there was no one left to pass it to. The work didn't change, but where it landed did. He stayed there for a while. Then, without thinking too much further, he reached for the mouse. He opened the report again. This time, He didn't start from the top. He scrolled straight to the conclusion. One line stood out. Deviation in batch 47. He paused. He didn't fully understand what it meant. So he looked it up, read a few documents, came back, read the same line again. Still unclear, but not completely foreign anymore. He started tracing the process upward. Batch ID, production time, inspection checkpoints. There was more than he could take in at once. So he didn't try to. Each time he got stuck, he searched just enough to move one step further. Then came back. The screen slowly filled with tabs. At first, everything felt disconnected. But after a while, small pieces began to link together. Not perfectly, but enough to keep going. By noon, he still didn't have an answer. But something had changed. He was no longer looking at something unfamiliar. He was starting to understand what he was dealing with. He went back to the email, placed his hands on the keyboard, paused for a moment, then started typing. The first day didn't lead anywhere. He followed the wrong direction, focusing on the results instead of the process. Hours passed. Nothing he could explain. On the second day, he started over. This time, he followed the steps themselves. Production, storage, handling, trying to understand how the outcome was shaped. It was slower, and at times, frustrating. There were moments he could have stopped, closed everything, walked away. No one was watching. No one was forcing him to continue. But he stayed. On the third day, a small detail stood out. The issue wasn't everywhere. It appeared in one specific batch, under one set of conditions. He went back again, more carefully this time. And gradually, the pattern started to make sense. By the end of that day, Kevin sent his response. It wasn't long, but it was clear. He leaned back in his chair. For the first time, he had worked through something he used to avoid. There are moments in life when things stop feeling difficult in the usual sense. They corner you. No familiar ground, no easy way out. You either face them or you leave. And if you leave, that same limit tends to follow you. Kevin understood that now. In every part he didn't understand, in every moment he had to sit still and keep going. When there's no space left to avoid something, you begin to face it. And that's often the moment when what once felt out of reach starts to take shape. Not all at once, but enough that you can't go back to who you were before. Sometimes, the situations that feel like they're closing in on you aren't there to stop you. They're there to show you you've reached a level you haven't stepped into yet. And if you don't turn away in that moment, if you move toward it, even without knowing how, that pressure starts to change what you're capable of. Not just something you survive, but something you grow through. Because sometimes what looks like pressure is actually the clearest opportunity you have to become a stronger version of yourself. If this story stayed with you, take a second to subscribe. More like this, for when you need it.